Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. We are at the start of the 2028 to 2029 offseason today. Real great regular season for the Royals, 103 and 59, but then we got knocked out by the White Sox in the ALDS. So we did not successfully defend our 2027 World Championship this year. We did get a 3-year contract extension from ownership, but they've got pretty ambitious goals for us over the next few years. Want us to win the championship this year, improve the finances to have a hugely profitable year, and also build a top 6 minor league system by 2032. And then they also want us to build a dynasty. So still a lot of pressure, even though we did just get a 3-year contract extension. We've now completed 7 years as GM of the Royals, 6 winning seasons, 4 playoff appearances, and that one championship in 2027. Turning to our finances as the offseason begins, we did just get an increase of $8 million in the annual budget up to $210 million. You can see we've got pretty good progression in our budget over the 7 years that we have been general manager of the Royals. We have good fan loyalty at this point, pretty high fan interest of an 80. Market size is still below average, but with that recent bump to the budget, do have some money available right now for free agents and extensions. Looking at our team, the big decisions right now are Trevor Rogers, $18 million for the upcoming season. Do we keep him even though he's not what he used to be, or try to trade him away? Another big decision is our closer, Austin Roberts, who's going to be due about $12.5 million through arbitration this year. That is obviously getting very pricey for a team like Kansas City, even though he's been an excellent pitcher over the course of his career. You can see here 4+ seasons in the majors, led the league in saves 3 times, career ERA of 2.41, 173 ERA plus, and 63 FIP minus, with 408 strikeouts in 306 and 2/3 innings pitched. So he has been a fantastic pitcher for us. At some point, though, the pricing there is going to be difficult. And then the last big decision I'm thinking about as free agency begins is what to do with shortstop. Nicky Lopez, who has been in place as our shortstop for the full 7 years that we've been running this sim, is now a free agent. He is only looking for about $6 million a year to extend, but he does want a 6-year contract, which, given that he's going to turn 34 next year, seems a bit much. He's a fan favorite, very popular, great in the clubhouse. Not much of an offensive player at this point, although he did put up a 95 OPS plus last season. Still very good defensively, though. If we move on from Lopez, the move is going to be to switch Bobby Witt Jr. from third to short, which is kind of a unique move to potentially be making with a 28-year-old. Doesn't have optimal range to play at shortstop, only a 60 there, but his error, his arm, and his double play ability are all more than good enough to be playing at shortstop. So the question is whether we move on from Nicky Lopez and kind of shift Bobby Witt Jr. to shortstop, or do we move on from Nicky Lopez and try to pick up a different shortstop through trade or free agency. So those are the big decisions that I think we're facing as the offseason begins. Obviously, things can evolve over time. First thing we're going to tackle right now is salary arbitration. You can see we've got about a dozen guys here in arbitration. Need to figure out what to do with them. Jose Barrero, Nicky Lopez, and Reese McGuire are all free agents. And then Jonah Heim, Kyle Lewis, and Brandon Marsh are free agents without potential compensation. Obviously, we're not going to submit an $18.9 million qualifying offer to Barrero, Lopez, or McGuire, because any of them would accept that in a second. So We'll not be submitting any qualifying offers this year, but the first thing we're going to try to do is figure out what to do with all of the arbitration eligible players, see if we can sign them for a little less than we might need to if we go to an arbitration hearing. Also potentially get the bonus bump in fan interest if we sign some popular players to a one-year contract, and go from there. That's definitely step number one. We're going to cut our scouting and development budgets just a little bit right now to give us a little more flexibility in terms of money. Certainly potential that we will want to push those back up to the levels that they were at going forward. And then thinking about player development, you can see we're a middling minor league system right now. Probably going to need to put some more money into our draft budget before we get to next season, but we've got time to think about that before we have to make any decisions there. One earlier decision we want to make is what to do with our ticket prices. Given that we're still expecting to be a pretty competitive team, I'm actually going to knock them up again here to $26. We have been selling out Kauffman Stadium really, as you can see here, for 4 seasons in a row, essentially almost selling out every game. So we want to get prices a little higher to maximize revenue as opposed to maximizing attendance, but haven't been able to figure out what that number is yet. So we'll put them up to $26, see if we continue to sell in the neighborhood of 16,500 season tickets, and then kind of adjust from there as we get into the season if we need to, one way or the other. Hopping into our arbitration hearings, Spencer Bauer, big number, expected to make about $10 million next year. Number one pitcher on our staff. He is fragile. He did win a Cy Young Award last season, has been an all-star each of the past 2 seasons, and obviously won the World Series last year. So very important member of our team. Arbitration eligible, as we know, looking for about $10 million a year. He is interested in extending with us for 10 years if we are to give him an average of about $25 million a year. Given that he's already 28 years old and he's already fragile, that is definitely not a contract we'll be comfortable doing at Kansas City. So I think instead we're just going to look to hopefully buy out this next year of arbitration from him, see if we can maybe do it at $9.5 million, a little less than what he was looking for. We'll include a bonus if he wins the Cy Young Award. Would obviously love to see that. He's looking for $11 million. Maybe can we get him for a little less than the 10 that we were thinking he needs? Looks like he'll think about $9.8 million. So obviously would love to lock him up for the longer term, but he's looking for full money, looking for $25 million a year for a decade at the age of 28. So I don't think that's something we can really pursue as the Royals. Zach Williman, another important pitcher for us. Really good stuff, 3 nice pitches, good control, not a ton of movement, so he does give up some dingers, 19 in 149 innings last year. Also doesn't have the greatest stamina in the world, so he's really kind of a 5-inning starter for us, given that we've had a really good bullpen. That hasn't been a big problem for us in the past, but he's getting close to the point where he's going to be getting too expensive. This is his last arbitration year. I don't know at age 32 if we want to sign him to a long-term deal, but let's see what he comes to us with. Yeah, he's looking for $14.5 million a year for 6 years, given that he's going to be 33 by next season, and he's really just a 5-inning pitcher. I think at this point we are going to just try to sign him for 1 year. See if he'll go for $6.8 million for that 1-year extension. He's a little insulted by that, so we'll pop it up to $7.2 million. See what he thinks about that, and he's willing to listen there. So progress with the first 2 guys at a little less than what the team was expected to offer. So hopefully we can continue going. Not going to walk through all of the relievers one by one here, but certainly going to give some thought to whether we want to bring back any and all of these players. And I guess I lied. I think I may walk through these players one by one, and we'll just kind of focus on arbitration in this episode. If it's we may do more than arbitration, but if this is boring you, it's probably a good sign that you don't need to hear our thought process in these next 10 or so players, and you can move on to the end of this. Dylan Coleman, he's a player who's been with us for a while, spent more time in Omaha than he has at the major league level over the past few years. 32 years old, put up a 4.62 ERA before he got hurt. I think we may look to shop Dylan Coleman. I don't know that I want to re-sign him at $1.3 million. I kind of think he's more of a replacement level right-handed middle relief arm in his early 30s. Nothing exceptional there. So let us see if there's any interest at all for Dylan Coleman among prospects or regulars. I can't imagine there's going to be tons of interest, but yeah, a lot of middle relievers, a lot of people making the major league minimum, which is good. Justin Thomas here, right fielder. He is what he is. Nothing too exciting. Don't know that we're going to want to go chasing after him. Juan Pablo Correa looks like a decent major league quality bat with a little bit of power, who can certainly play first base. Could play third in a pinch. You could put him in left or right field if you had to. He's got an option year left. I wouldn't mind building something around Juan Pablo Correa for a guy that we don't really have any use for at all in Coleman. The rest of this is just kind of, middle relievers in their late 20s, early 30s. Nothing too exciting there. Just looking purely at stars. Michael Hobbs is a right-handed reliever, kind of a generic guy, going to be making more than Coleman would have. So I think I'm going to try to build something around Juan Pablo Correa to give us a little more depth institutionally in our infield if we decide to move on from Zach DeCenzo, because he's getting a little more expensive. Correa wouldn't be a horrible replacement for him, but Correa may be a guy who's only in our organization for 1 year, given that he's just got that one option year left, and I think it's pretty unlikely that we're going to have a significant role for him at the major league level, but we'll see. And it looks like Coleman had some pretty decent value to the Mets, so we're going to trade him as well as the starting pitching prospect, Luis Rodriguez, who's 25 years old. Doesn't look like he's ever going to become a big-time pitcher, only an A-ball this past year, although he did have a 2.30 ERA there. And we are going to get Correa, who, as I mentioned, could end up playing a role at the major league level for us, but is certainly institutional depth who can stay in AAA next year. Center fielder Willie Flores, never going to be much of a hitter, but a nice personality. Just organizational depth. Second baseman Yanardi Soto doesn't really have a defensive position. Could be a acceptable major league bat for a backup infielder. The issue is he doesn't really play any defensive positions all that well, so I think he's really just more a throw-in guy, and then we did get some cash from them, so gonna go ahead and make that deal and move on from Mr. Coleman. RJ Dabovich is starting to get expensive, looking for around $3 million. He's probably looking for more than that. We think he can sign for about $3 million. But he has been an all-star 3 consecutive seasons as a middle reliever for us. You can see he led the league in games pitched this past year, almost out there every other day for us. 129 strikeouts, over 100 innings. At some point, he's going to get to be a little bit of a luxury, and it could very well be next season, or the season after this one. But I think even at close to $3 million, I think willing to bring him back. He's been an important part of our bullpen, and our bullpen has been a real important part of what we've done. Actually, you can see he's only scheduled or only expected to make about 3.2 million the year after that. He's also, if we decide to move on from Roberts as our closer at some point with 3 really good pitches, pretty good stuff, acceptable movement and control, he could potentially, fill in that closer role for us in a pinch if we needed to. So definitely want to keep him around. He's only looking for a 1-year deal right now. May see if we can get him for a little bit less and sign him up for the next couple years and maybe buy out a year of free agency. And I don't think Dabovich will go for this. We're offering him $2.75 million a year for the next 3 years, along with a $100,000 bonus if he continues to make the All-Star team. I don't think it's going to be quite enough. Yeah, he doesn't want to be tied up long term. Not a shocker. So he says he's happy with the dollar value of the deal, but he doesn't want to be tied up that long. But then he's asking for more. Let's see if we can just get him at $2.75 million for next year. And he's still looking for a little bit more than that, 2.8. Starting to make him angry. 2.9 million for RJ, and that's probably about as much as we'll go with him. Fortunately, it looks like that will get it done. So got offers out to Bauer, Williman, and Dabovich. We have moved on from Coleman. Mackenzie Gore now, who out with a torn UCL, going to be out for another 6 months. So it's October 31st right now. He's basically going to miss all of spring training, and we don't know what he's going to look like. He was very effective with a 2.87 ERA over 37 and 2/3 innings before he got hurt. But he's been out since last May, so he's going to be 30 years old by the time he's pitching again and coming off of an injury that basically took him out for almost an entire year. I don't know how aggressive we want to be. He's looking for a raise from $1.35 million to $1.8 million. That sounds aggressive to me. Definitely willing to bring him back. Hopefully he'll be almost exactly what he was, but there's certainly no guarantees. Arbitration-wise, expected to make 1.8 and 2. I just don't know that I want to offer someone coming off of that type of an injury as much money as that. I don't think he's going to sign for $1.55 million, even though that's still a $200,000 raise after he's coming off an injury. I would think that that's not unreasonable, but he probably will want more. Yeah, he's still looking for more. Let's see if we can get him for $1.65 million next year. Still doesn't like it, but getting closer. 1.7, 1.75. All right, he's willing to think about that. So we're trying to save every penny as we can, going back and forth with these guys without provoking them too much. Will Klein had a really nice year for us. He's due for a decent bump from the major league minimum to almost double of that this coming year. Really good stuff, really good movement. Basically just a fastball pitcher. Excellent fastball, acceptable curve, but 4.25 ERA when he first, not when he first came up, but the season before last. Then he spent all of 2027 in Omaha. Back this year with much better results, 126 strikeouts in 91 and 2/3 innings, 2.95 ERA. He's a ground ball pitcher who throws nearly 100 miles an hour. Definitely somebody interesting to have. Perfectly willing to offer him some money. Just want it to be as little as possible. Let's see if we can sign him for 1.25. Not quite what he's looking for. Will he sign for 1.3? He will think about that. So another reliever on the way back. Scott Kobos is going to be an interesting decision. In our last episode, we talked about him being our lefty specialist for the past several years, but only pitched 22 1/3 innings these past year. He really is a lefty one-out guy by definition. Very good results with the 2.42 ERA, but for someone who pitches that little, looking for a raise to 1.68 million, I've got to give him a little more thought. Ricky Vanasco, we don't have to give much thought to. He could has been and could once again be a key member of our rotation. You can see last year he started just 15 out of the 48 games that he pitches, but he's got acceptable stamina, 2 really good pitches and 2 above average pitches. Great stuff, great movement. The issue is just the control and how many people he's going to walk, but he's proven to be pretty effective at the major league level. Looking at contract expectations for him over the longer term, his numbers are expected to go up 3 this season, followed by 6, followed by 7.5. He's only looking for a 1-year deal now. I think that's fine. Let's see if we can get him in for $2.75 million for next year. Not really what he was expecting. That's what I get for always trying to go a little cheap. 2.85 isn't even going to get it done. Arbitration estimate is only $3 million, but it seems like he's looking for big time money here. Okay, 2.95 million. Hopefully that can get that done with Mr. Vanasco. Austin Roberts is another guy we need to think about a little more. Actually, all these guys we've got to think about a little more. So I'm going to do some thinking. I think we're going to try to run Kobos back. He's been a good lefty for us. He's getting very expensive, but hopefully Byron Nichols will use him a little more this coming season than he did last year. Don't know that we want to make a long-term commitment, but maybe if we can sign him for $1.5 million or so, I think that would be more than acceptable. I'll start out a little lower than I want at $1.45 million, see how that goes. Not going to get it done. The $1.5 million I talked about, I'm guessing that extra $50,000 isn't going to be that exciting to him. $1.55 million for Kobos, getting close, so I'm guessing 1.6 will get it done. He's happy with that offer. Again, getting a little expensive if we're only going to get 22 1/3 innings out of him, but hopefully we will get more from him next year. Austin Roberts, our closer, is the big decision. I think I'm going to make him an offer. He's an exceptional reliever, and I do know that if we shop a player like him around, there are going to be a lot of teams interested in trading for him. We can see we've got lots of options here. 3.5-star reliever and Alex Manasseh. I don't know that we're going to trade him for another reliever, although that he's only making $870,000 a year, $870,000 a year. And you can see he's got a pretty good profile, 3 nice pitches. I'm not going to trade him for him straight up right now, but there are a multitude of options if we decided that we wanted to move on from Roberts at some point. That said, with some of the offers that we're making right now and freeing up our scouting and development budgets, we've got money to spend at this point. So I don't think there's any harm in extending him for another year. I wouldn't say it's 100% certain that he's going to be back with us on the Major League roster next year. It's possible that when we get into free agency and we get into the winter meetings and stuff that we decide to move on from him. But if he's signed for next year at a reasonable arbitration figure, I think that he'll still have a lot of value on the trade market. So he's expected to get about 12.5. He's going to be looking for more than that. We're going to see if we can get him for somewhat less than that. He's looking for 13.8. We're going to see if we can get him for $11,750, and we'll bump up the All-Star bonus to $100,000 from $80,000. It probably will be an All-Star. Deal is doable if you include a no-trade clause. This deal, okay, so he wants more money and a no-trade clause. I don't know that we are going to do that. We will give you $12 million for next year, though, but we are not going to include a no-trade clause. And he's willing to think about the $12 million, so that is good. Try to get him locked up. So we spent a lot of time thinking about the pitching staff, and now let's get into the 3 position players we have who are eligible for arbitration. Stephen Paulini is a guy we picked up in a trade with Atlanta almost 3 years ago today. You can see he's had a pretty big role for the team over the past 3 years. Basically was an everyday player in 26 and 28, kind of coming off the bench in 27. Probably not surprisingly, when he was coming off the bench in 2027, that was the year we won the World Series. Definitely would feel better with him not playing every day, but an acceptable major league hitter, acceptable fourth outfielder, got some good speed, good base runner, can steal some bases. You can see he's stolen over 20 bases each year for us. His contract's still going to be pretty reasonable. Arbitration estimate is $1.7 million. I would love it if he ends up being our fourth or fifth outfielder next year, rather than having to start because of either a lack of talent on the team or a lot of injuries in the outfield. But I'm perfectly happy to have Paulini back, and hopefully he can get the batting average up a little bit. 239, 208, and 226 the last 3 years. If we can just get a 250 average out of him, would feel a lot better about him. And you can see if he gets the batting average up to 250, his OPS plus is probably above average at that point, and his WRC plus probably would be also. So we are going to try to bring him back, offer him an extension. He's looking for $2.1 million. Arbitration number that we think is 1.7. We're going to see if we can pick him up for 1.55. Doesn't like that one bit. How about 1.65 to Mr. Paulini? He will think about that. So hopefully we will have him back as a backup outfielder. And now the two 28-year-old first basemen who have been kind of joined by the hip. You can see they've both been in the majors with us for exactly 4 years. Similar players. Lots of power from both of them, but they strike out a lot, don't make the best contact in the world. We'll take a look at the stats over the course of their career. DeCenzo is better defensively, more versatile defensively, but not as good offensively. Over the course of his career, he's put up a 97 OPS plus, 95 WRC plus, so been a bit below average in terms of an offensive player. Does have good power with 69 career home runs in 1,366 at-bats. So, I don't want him to be an everyday player for us, but he is versatile enough to play a really good first base, and he can fill in a pinch in second and third. He could even play shortstop if we needed him to. I think that we may look in spring training to train him up a little bit in left field or right field, give him a little more defensive versatility. He is going to get expensive at some point. He's making $1.2 million this year, and you can see he's expecting his salary to be doubled to $2.64 million for a player who we hope is a backup. That's starting to get expensive. Willing to bring him back for this coming season at 2.6-ish, maybe a little less than that. I don't know that we want him back at over $4 million for 2030, though. So he is a player who we could be looking to move on from, if not sooner, a year from now. And certainly, I don't feel strongly enough about DeCenzo that if he was the key to getting a deal done, somehow in this offseason, we could move on from him also. But definitely willing to give him an extension. I don't think he's going to go for a mere doubling of his salary to $2.4 million from $1.2 right now, but that's where we're going to start the discussion. Not ready to sign yet, looking for a little more. Hopefully $2.5 million for next year will get the deal done. Still looking for a little more, Mr. DeCenzo. Interesting. $2.55 million. So, have an offer out to DeCenzo. Peyton Williams, as we talked about, similar profile, better contact hitter, more power, and doesn't strike out as much. The issue with Peyton Williams is he doesn't have the defensive versatility, and he doesn't have the defensive quality that DeCenzo has. But he is, without a doubt, a more productive offensive player. You can see he's put up a 117 OPS plus and a 117 WRC plus over the course of his career. 132 home runs in 1,890 at-bats. So he is a devastating power hitter. But you can see for his career, he's only put up a WAR of 5.6 because he's so mediocre defensively. So definitely not a perfect player. He made 4.8 million this past year. He's also getting to the point where he's going to get pretty pricey for us. 8.4 million this year and 10.8 million next year. He's definitely borderline to me whether we even want him back at 8.4 million. The only reason I'm going to make him an offer is that I feel like we're low on offense. I don't love our outfielders. I don't think we're getting great defense from them, and I don't think we're getting great offense from them either, and that's kind of where you want to generate some of that. But a bat like Peyton Williams, who's going to consistently hit, at least 27 homers. That's the least that he's ever hit in the majors. And you can see he did hit 49 with 112 driven in last year, 137 WRC plus, and a WAR of close to 3. It's not inconceivable he could put up another offensive year closer to that next season. I don't think he's a long-term guy for us, and I don't want to be paying him over $10 million a year, so certainly not going to offer him a long-term extension. But if we can get him next year for, a reasonable amount, I don't think he's going to go for 7.8 million, and we'll up the bonus if he makes the All-Star team. That would be great. It's close to what he's looking for. How about 7.95 million, Mr. Williams, for 1 year? Getting close. 8.05 million, and he is willing to think about that. So now we have offers out to all of the players in arbitration, all of them just 1-year extensions, no long-term deals, and obviously we decided to move on from Coleman. Pending free agents, Lopez is a big decision, whether we want to try to bring him back over the next few weeks. Reese McGuire, do we want to bring him back as our backup catcher? Jose Barrero is just looking for stupid money. He is a acceptable offensive player, as average as you're ever going to see. He's an acceptable defensive player, but certainly nothing exceptional defensively. And you can see he's looking for $11.6 million a year for 3 years. Is a 30-year-old who, for us, is, if we build the roster the way we want it, he's not a starter for us. He's, kind of a, utility infielder for us in a perfect world, and don't want to be spending anywhere near $11 million for a player like that. Brandon Marsh and Kyle Lewis, who we teamed up in center field this year, going to be moving on from both of them. Jonah Heim would be an option to bring back as catcher. We're going to need to decide whether we want to bring back Reese McGuire, who is a bit below average offensively, but really good defensively and a good personality. He'll be 34 next year, and he is looking for $1.54 million, so he's looking for less money than the $2.3 million he made this year. That could be what gets him back with us. Jonah Heim, similar offensive profile, not quite as good as his catcher ability, a little bit better arm, also good in the clubhouse, and Heim is looking for $1.9 million a year for the next 3 years. So I guess the question is whether we want to lock up Jonah Heim as our backup for the next few years, or potentially bring back for 1 year Reese McGuire at a lower amount. And I think I'm leaning towards bringing Reese McGuire back at a little bit lower amount. Looking for $1.54 million. Let's see if we can get him signed for $1.35 million. Yeah, we'll give you a bonus if you get 480 at-bats, because you ain't getting 480 at-bats with us, Reese. Sorry. Yeah, and he's willing to think about that. So made that offer. I think that's kind of the initial round of what we want to do here. We've got to decide what to do with Nicky Lopez. We'll wait and see after hopefully all of these players sign relatively soon what our free agent and extension budget looks like. if we get those players signed and we make some other minor moves in the coming days. And then we've obviously got a lot of time until salary arbitration, which is on Tuesday, November 21st. So we've got 3 weeks to figure all of this stuff out, 3 weeks to get ahead of free agency. So we are going to start simming ahead and hopefully get several of these players signed. And only had to sim ahead a few days here to Saturday, November 4th, and you can see we've got a ton of the arbitration eligible players, ink deals. Fans are happy we brought back Austin Roberts. The fans are ecstatic that we brought back Spencer Bauer, so those are both positive moves there. You can see with those two combined, kicked the fan interest from 80 to 87, so those guys really were very popular. That should be good for selling some tickets at those higher prices to get those two both on board. Real big boost to fan interest, so that was positive for us in the early stages here. And you can see we're at this point just waiting to hear from Mackenzie Gore and Peyton Williams, and then we'll have everyone we wanted to have locked up hopefully. And we've now gotten both Mackenzie Gore and Peyton Williams signed to those contracts, so not going to have anyone going to arbitration, which is positive. Still need to figure out what, if anything, we want to do with Nicky Lopez, but looking at the front office now, we've got about $14.4 million available for free agents, $13.5 million available for extensions, which is really kind of the more relevant number as we think about getting into free agency. So have some thinking to do now as to what we want to do with Nicky Lopez. We can certainly afford him. Looking at the potential free agents who are going to be out there, there's not a ton at shortstop. Lopez, actually with that, it says he's looking for $9 million now. Did we wait too long? Yeah, he claims he's looking for $9 million now. Well, then 6 years. Probably should have signed him to the $6 million he was looking for not too long ago. But I think that does, given the fact that he's going to be 34 years old next year, and he's fragile physically, and although his infield range is better than Bobby Witt Jr., his error, his arm, and his turning double play are all lower. Obviously, it's not going to be popular if Nicky Lopez moves on from the team, but I guess that's a sign that maybe right when arbitration begins, if you're on the fence about somebody, sign him, because his price has definitely gone up over the last week as we've gotten closer to free agency. But there's not really anyone exceptionally exciting out here. You can see, the kind of 60 broadly rating that Lopez has defensively is as good as anyone else who's out there, but there's no one exceptional. Ryan Kreidler's out there, who we had as a utility infielder a few years ago. He's actually pretty solid defensively. I don't know that we'd want him to be our starter, but if we do move Bobby Witt Jr. to short, having a defensive player like Kreidler around wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Not a great bat, but also not expected to be looking for a ton of money, about $2 million a year. I think I'd rather kind of go with somebody like him. Looking more broadly, other than just shortstop, looking at the batters who are out there, Joey Gallo, Aaron Judge, Brandon Nimmo, and Akil Baddoo are the big bats out there. The only one that we could theoretically think about adding would be Brandon Nimmo. Not much power, but a good contact hitter, walks a decent amount. You can see he's been splitting the last couple years between AAA and the majors with the Atlanta organization, and he's also wrecked physically over the course of his career at the major league level, though. Has put up a 115 OPS plus, 118 WRC plus, only a 256 hitter. Actually, that's lower than I would have guessed for him with his profile, but he's kind of the only guy that we could afford. A couple catchers who are mediocre-ish defensively and expensive. Kyle Tucker and our former teammate Juan Yepez, both looking for 25-ish million a year. Just nothing too exciting out there in free agency at this point, I don't think. And I mean, that almost pushes us towards you just kind of pay Lopez with the money we have, bring him back and run things back with a roster similar to what we've had. But then we haven't looked at the pitchers yet. And kind of looking at the pitchers, it looks like it is a bit... just a lot of relievers out here. Might be someone for us to add. You know, you look at someone like Logan Gilbert, does kind of have the stamina to start, but does he have... he's got 3 pitches. He could actually start. You know, his stuff and his control are acceptable, although he'd probably look worse as a starter. So, you know, he can spend a lot of money on one of these relievers. I don't think we need to do that. Blake Workman, looking for $27 million a year, supposedly. He's a starter with 4 pitches, but he's got no stamina. You can see he's a 5-inning starter, similar to what we have in Williman. Really good profile, and he's obviously been an effective starter when you look at his statistics. But and he has been an all-star for 3 straight seasons here. But I don't know that we want to be paying somebody like that $27 million a year. And honestly, we can't afford to pay somebody $27 million a year because we don't have the money to do that right now. So we'd have to move heaven and earth and trade away a bunch of players to be able to do that. But I think there's arms here who could potentially help us. Right now, I'm reasonably happy with our pitching staff. It's been one of the top staffs in baseball for the past several years. And other than Coleman, we're basically bringing back everybody, including Roberts and Rogers at this point. So, and I don't think I'm going to trade away Trevor Rogers. I know he's probably not worth the full $18 million at this point, but we've got $14 million for free agents, $13.5 million for extensions right now anyways. With our budget steadily increasing, we're not up against it financially right now. Am I going to exercise the team option at $18 million for 2030 when he's another year older, another year of wear and tear? Probably not, but he did put up a 2.99 ERA for us last year with a 77 FIP minus, still a very effective major league pitcher. So happy to have him, even if he's a 3rd or 4th starter for us rather than the ace of the rotation that we thought he was going to be when we signed him before he suffered the injury issues. But don't feel like I have to dump him right now. But I also don't feel like there's a ton for us to chase in free agency, which is all the more reason to keep him. I think the big decision for us now is, do we try to extend Nicky Lopez and bring him back at short, or do we let him go and then potentially try to find another shortstop in free agency, or just potentially move Bobby Witt Jr. to that shortstop position? And then we've got a lot of real versatile players, both Ricardo Cabrera and both the young first baseman can play multiple positions in the infield. So if we get Witt Jr. at shortstop, we basically can have our choice of any infielder out there and just kind of put him at second or first or third, wherever. We're going to kind of mix and match to have the best options possible, and that may be a more cost-effective way of kind of building this team. Although you look at the top infielders, and with a couple exceptions, they're all looking for $10 million plus. Lopez is one of the exceptions, Jonathan India, and 35-year-old Brian Anderson, who, average-ish major league bat, but I don't know that I want to be paying him $8 million a year at the age of 35. So there's nothing particularly exciting that seems like it's going to be out there at free agency. Do we just go all the way down to a David Fletcher, who solid defensively, good personality, can play second, third, or short, makes decent contact, doesn't strike out, just doesn't have any home run power. But he spent the last couple years in AAA, interesting. So he would probably come pretty cheap. 83 OPS plus, 80 WRC plus over the course of his career. I view him more as our utility infielder than someone we'd potentially want to be starting every day. So if we do move on from Lopez, that still gives us a hole that I think we need to fill with somebody better than Fletcher. And the other option would obviously be, letting DeCenzo start every day at first base. I don't think that's optimal. I'd rather have DeCenzo kind of be a utility player for us. I just think that's more the role that he would have on a good team, and hopefully the Royals will be a good team again next year. And as we think about what to do with Nicky Lopez, we are headed into award season. Bobby Witt Jr., Gold Glove at third base, the only Gold Glove winner for the Royals. That marks the fourth Gold Glove in his career, 4 consecutive Gold Gloves for him at third base. As we've just been talking about, we've been thinking about potentially moving him to short. Even though he doesn't have optimal range there, he's still is acceptable for a shortstop. And then everything else about him is well above, anything you need. I'd rather have him as a great defensive third baseman rather than a above average shortstop, but we've still got some decisions to make as to what we're going to do with Nicky Lopez, and unfortunately time is getting a bit short for us to make that decision before we get to free agency. And another day, another award for the Royals. Will Klein, who we talked about earlier, signed him in arbitration. The reliever of the year, only a 4-9 record, but those 126 strikeouts over 91 and 2/3 innings, 78 FIP minus, 2.66 Sierra. Has never even been an all-star, but he's now the 2028 reliever of the year. You can see that our closer, Austin Roberts, also got a couple of votes for the award this year, and both Klein and Roberts were locked up over the past week or so. So they will both be back on the team next year, and hopefully will continue to be big-time relievers out of our bullpen. And no Silver Slugger awards for the Royals this year, which was a little bit of a surprise. Bigger surprise for me is that Shai-Tong Kin did not win Rookie of the Year, but obviously I hadn't looked too closely. The fact that Bobby Figueroa won it with unanimously, and you look at his numbers here, 43 homers, 114 ribbies, 278 batting average, obviously had a monster year for them as a third baseman. 163 OPS plus, 7.4 WAR. Pretty hard to argue against him. But Si-Tong Kin and Junior Marin, our 2 key rookies, finished second and third in the voting. So glad to have both of those guys around. We've talked a ton about Kin. Love his defensive versatility, love his bat, and look forward to seeing what he can do to build off of his excellent rookie year when he batted .297 with 25 homers, 92 ribbies, and put up a 4.6 WAR for us. And Junior Marin had a good year offensively for us. His batting profile hasn't developed as well as I would have hoped, and he's going to be 25 years old by next year, so he probably is what he is at this point. He's fragile injury proneness. Similar to Sal Frelick, I think he's a plus bat with an acceptable defensive outfielder, but both Frelick and Marin are corner outfielders at best, and they're both also fragile, so they both have key roles in our lineup. Marin led the team with 30 homers, tied for the team lead with Kin with 92 ribbies, and hit .277 for us. So a really nice rookie year. And I think that, having Frelick and Marin as our corner outfielders when they're healthy is more than acceptable offensively. The issue is that I don't know how healthy they're both going to be. And we also don't have much of a bat in center field. So that could be another area that we look to improve in in free agency if we decide to not kind of give most of the money that we have right now available to Nicky Lopez to play short for us. And I was not expecting any of the big awards, the two big ones, to the Royals this year. You can see Cy Young Award. Spencer Bauer, after winning it last season, finished fifth in the voting this year. And then our closer, Austin Roberts, finished ninth in the voting, so did get two players with votes. But Gerangelo Clinche of the White Sox, who is a monster pitcher, 25 years old. You look at that stuff with plus movement and plus control, three incredible pitches plus a more than acceptable changeup, and that adds up to a player who strikes out 274 batters in 192 and two-thirds innings, goes 15-6, strikes out, as we talked about, 12.8 per nine, 127 ERA plus, 81 FIP minus, and 4.5 WAR. So not a shock to see a player like that winning. Coleman Crow, unanimous Cy Young Award winner for the Padres, 18-8, 2.92 ERA, 211 strikeouts, so good year there. Danny DeAndre of the Detroit Tigers, not a unanimous American League MVP, but you bat 309 with 39 homers, 105 dingers. You're probably going to get some votes, which he did, edging Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bobby Figueroa is the others who got first place votes. And then our guy, Bobby Witt Jr., finished fourth in the voting. Shi-Tong Kin is a rookie, got some MVP votes also. And then moving to the National League, Alex Palacio of the San Francisco Giants. Young third baseman, just 24 years old, in a monster year, hit 284, 42 homers, 115 driven in, put up a WAR of 7.6. Wow. 24 years old. Look at that batting profile. Doesn't have a ton of speed, not a great base runner, but he is a monster at the plate and probably only going to keep getting better, and a good defensive third baseman too. So he's won a couple of Silver Sluggers, been an All-Star a couple times, Rookie of the Year last year, and now MVP in his second full season. So those are the awards for the 2028 season. And I just checked back in on Nicky Lopez, and his demand is down to $6 million again from $9 million. So he's being pretty volatile. I don't know that I actually do know. I do not want to sign him for 6 years. I'm willing to bring him back next year. He's just been so good defensively for us over the years, and pitching and defense has been what this team has been built around. The fact that we can fit him in, hopefully, if he's willing to agree to a shorter term contract with the money we have now, basically allows us to run the exact same team that just won 103 games back next year, with a little flexibility to add a player or two on the margins in free agency. We can also, spend some of the offseason getting creative about trades. We do have some valuable assets, like I talked about with our closer Roberts. We could certainly trade him. We could certainly trade Zach DeCenzo. We could certainly trade Peyton Williams as we try to kind of upgrade center field, upgrade the team in general. I wouldn't feel horrible having Nicky Lopez back for another year at a reduced number. The fact that he's looking for a 6-year contract right now, though, makes me think that we might not be able to do that. So Nicky Lopez is looking for $6 million a year for 6 years. I'm willing to give him the $6 million a year, but I only want to offer him a $3 million contract, and I want it to be a team option each of the next couple years, whether we actually bring him back so we can get out without too much pain. I don't know if he'll go for this or not, but I think that's about as much as we would do. He's willing to think about it. Maybe I bid too high. I never feel good when my first offer is one that the guy accepts, but I think it's fair. It's obviously a pay cut from the $12 million he's at this year, which I think is reasonable given his injury proneness and his age, and the fact that he's not quite as sharp defensively as he was. But it gives us a starting shortstop, a good defensive starting shortstop for next year. We don't have to move Bobby Witt Jr. over to third. And then if he's as good a year from now as he is today, then maybe we bring him back next year also. We've got him under our control. If not, pay him the buyout, say thank you for being our shortstop for close to a decade, and move on. Ha, and Lopez comes back immediately and says the offer was not terrible, but he needs a bit more money and another year to consider it. So we may not be able to get that done. Now he says he wants $9.5 million a year over 4 years. No FW, Nicky. Not going to happen. I guess I could offer him 4 years if he's going to let there be a team option every year, but I don't think he's going to go for that. He's looking for $9.5 million a year for 4 years. I'm willing to average him an average of $7 million a year for 4 years. Take out the team option after year 2, so this locks us into him for the next 2 years. Then we've got a team option, and then there's a vesting option for a $10 million contract in the final year. Really, this is a 2-year contract. We would obviously get out of it, pay the buyout before his age 36 season, and avoid any risk of that vesting option coming into play. Given the amount he says he's looking for now, I don't think he's going to go for this, but yeah, salary offer is not going to get it done. He wants more money. I guess we could give him a little bit more in this upcoming year, given that we've got capacity to bring him back, but it's going to have to be something structured more the way that we want it than the way that he wants it. And I think this is the last and final offer we're going to be able to make to Lopez, probably because if he doesn't accept it, he's probably going to break off negotiations, or we're going to break off negotiations. But it's an average of $8 million a year for 4 years. He's looking for $9.5 million a year for 4 years, but we do have a team option after the second year again, and then a vesting option for the 4th year. So paying him a little bit more this upcoming season, $8 million instead of $6 million. And then kind of also increasing those numbers in the out years, which we are unlikely to ever exercise. I can't see myself going any higher than this for Nicky Lopez. If Bobby Witt Jr. is our shortstop next year and we need to do something in free agency or the trade market to help our infield, I think we can do that. You know, Nicky Lopez is an above-average defensive shortstop right now, but he is not elite at this point. You can see he's never won a Gold Glove, so he wasn't even elite back in the day. He still wants $9.5 million a year for 4 years, 3 years guaranteed essentially, and then a vesting option for that 4th year. There's no way we're going to go that long. I feel good that at least we tried to bring him back, because we are going to take a hit when he does leave, given that he's a fan favorite and he's been with us for a long time. He's a popular player, but I'm just not going to give a fragile player who's a below average offensive player, who's going to be 34 years old by the beginning of next year, and who is an above average but not great defensive shortstop. I'm not going to lock into that guy for $9.5 million a year for 4 years. I don't think that's responsible for any team to do. Certainly not responsible for the Royals to do, in my opinion. And as we've been arguing back and forth with Lopez, getting ready for arbitration hearing date, where obviously we don't have anyone involved, but see what happens with other teams. Scout asks us, or our assistant GM, our mythical assistant GM actually, would Yofri Solano merit consideration? He could be a useful addition to our roster. Yeah, 24-year-old who's already fragile physically, but you look at the offensive profile there, and he's a really interesting player. You look at the defensive profile there, and he could certainly play second for us at a very high level, could play short at an acceptable level. Yeah, would love to have the guy on the team, but you can see he had led the league in on-base percentage last year, led the league in walks. That 80-eye discipline would be great at the top of our order. So I do agree with our assistant GM that we might want to pursue him, and he could be a useful addition to the roster. I'm frightened to see exactly what the Marlins are going to be asking for him, because I'm guessing it would be possibly Bobby Witt Jr. We may not even have anyone who can make that deal work. Yeah, and you can see nobody who would make that deal work. So thank you for the suggestion, but I would love to have him on the roster next year, but it's not going to happen. And interesting, we're to salary arbitration date, and I just checked in with Nicky Lopez again and figured he was going to still be looking for that $9.5 million. But he has come down to looking for $8.3 million. Now, he still wants vesting options rather than team options, but it's closer to what we had offered him before. Was a $8 million average was what we offered him before. Although we kind of had that spread out a little differently, so we were only going to be on the hook $6 million next year before the team option and the vesting option. So we've cut it down back basically to the same average money we had offered him before, but we are going to give him $2 million up front before we presumably cut him 2 seasons from now and move on from him. We'll give it one last shot. I'm not going to give him $9.5 million, but $9.5 million for possibly 4 years is a lot different than $8 million over 4 years that we know is really only a 2-year contract. And he's willing to think about it. We've only got a couple of days before he hits free agency, so I don't know whether he'll have time to get back to us and accept it in that time. But in these closing minutes before we head to free agency, maybe there is a chance we bring Mr. Lopez back. And apparently there wasn't enough time to get the offer accepted, so we've simmed ahead a couple days and moved to free agency. Can see some of the guys we've talked about as far as the top players out there. I think most of them are going to be too expensive to us, but we'll certainly explore all avenues. International free agents, going through one by one of these allegedly top prospects, does not look like we have anyone quite like Kin out there this year. Juan Velasquez out of Cuba, relief pitcher, is kind of the most interesting. So nothing exciting to chase in terms of the international free agents this year. But Nicky Lopez is out there now, and now it says he's looking for $6 million a year. So a bit schizophrenic. Let's see what happens when we see the offer contract. Now he's looking for just $6 million a year for 5 years. So feel like we offered him better than that. We definitely offered him better than that. We didn't give him the 5 years, but he will certainly be something to consider as we get into free agency in our next episode. But, looking at the money that we have right now, we've got $19.5 million for free agents. So, and, we could always tweak with the scouting budget and the development budget. Player development, we've got $9 million for our draft budget, only expected to spend $7 million. So for the time being, we're going to knock that right down to the $7 million. Which puts us in a position now where, now we've got $21.5 million to spend on free agents. I don't know that we're going to make a big splash, as is often the case. It looks like this year all of the players who have made it to free agency, whether you're talking about a Joey Gallo or an Aaron Judge or a Brandon Nimmo, have some physical issues, wrecked or fragile. We don't want to be spending a ton of money on a relief pitcher. But there will be a lot for us to think about, and it may just end up being that we try to bring Nicky Lopez back. It may be that we try to work out a trade and give up a couple of prospects for a higher paid player who is in the prime of his career and kind of able to contribute right now. We'll have a lot of big decisions to make in the upcoming episodes as we really dive into free agency and the offseason in earnest. But that will be the business of our next episode. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.